Hello everyone and welcome to the Manage Engine OpUtils free training session. Let's take a look at what we'll be covering today. First, an overview of OpUtils, what it is and what it does. Next, how OpUtils helps you overcome modern IT challenges with a closer look at its key capabilities. And finally, why OpUtils is the right choice for managing your network. With that, let's get started. What exactly is OpUtils? OpUtils is a unified DDI and switchport mapping solution that gives you complete visibility and control over your IP address space and switch infrastructure. By bringing DNS, DHCP, and IP address management together, it makes monitoring your network simple and effortless. With OpUtils, you get a clear, real-time view of everything from IP address details to DNS data, so you always know what's happening in your network. It automatically scans your IPv4 and IPv6 space, tracks IP availability and port status, and shows it all in one clean dashboard. You also get 30 plus built-in tools for quick tasks like ping sweeps, MAC lookups, and port scans, making troubleshoot much faster. Plus, OpUtils sends proactive alerts and offers ready-to-use reports, helping you stay ahead of issues instead of fighting them. As your network grows, manual IP tracking gets harder and time-consuming. OpUtils automates the routine work and gives you instant, accurate insights when you need them. It's easy to deploy, simple to use, and designed to make a network admin's job smoother, so you can focus on what really matters instead of chasing down IP conflicts and switchport issues. So that's a quick overview of what OpUtils brings to the table. Now let's see how OpUtils helps with your IT operations. So what makes OpUtils stand out from other IP address management tools? We'll be walking through its different modules today, including IP address manager, DHCP management, DNS management, switchport mapper, rogue detection tool, network toolset, schedules, reports, alarms, and user management. Let's start with OpUtils IP address manager module. But before we dive into the module, let's pause for a moment and ask, why do we even need a dedicated IP address management solution? There are different tools out there like SNMP utilities or CLI queries that help monitor network address space. But the problem with these is that they often leave gaps. They are not always effective for real-time monitoring, and they can create backlogs. The IPAM module in OpUtils solves this by eliminating human efforts and manual efforts. It automates subnet discovery, IP data collection, and status updates for your IPs. Managing an IP database manually isn't easy. You'd need to constantly check the network, verify IP status, and update records. That's time-consuming, error-prone, and frankly, it's not scalable. With OpUtils, the IPAM module takes care of this automatically. It ensures your IP database is always updated in real time. Subnet discovery from Cisco Meraki is another added capability in OpUtils, allowing OpUtils to automatically detect and import Meraki subnet details, keeping them updated in real time without manual configuration. Another benefit of this automation is that it gives you a single source of truth. You can track multiple IPv4 and IPv6 subnets and supernet across your entire network, all from one inventory. You can get detailed insights to the MAC addresses associated with each IP. With continuous IP tracking, you can identify and troubleshoot issues at the earliest. With that overview of IPAM module, let's head over to the product and see these features in action. Now, let's dive deeper into the IP address manager module. For that, let's go to IP address manager. Let's see how to discover IPs in IPAM module. So for that, you have to hover over the add button that's given here. Here, you can add an IPv4 subnet, a supernet, a DHCP server, or even an IPv6 subnet or site. Let's see how we can add an IPv4 subnet. For that, let's choose IPv4 subnet. And here you have the option to add them manually or import from a CSV file. Now, when we're going to look at how to add it manually first, for that, we need to first give a group name. So either we can choose a group that has been already added, or we can add a subnet group as well. So for now, I'm choosing the default group. Under subnet network address, we have to give the subnet address. Let's say we're giving one subnet address. And you can choose the subnet mask, give the subnet name, VLAN, and etc. And then you can select the functions that need to be performed during subnet discovery. And then once you've given the features or the functions that has to be performed during discovery and select credentials, click on add, and your IPv4 subnet will get added under the in the OpUtils console. Similarly, you can also add supernets and IPv6 subnets in the same manner. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can also add Cisco Meraki to discover subnets. For that, go to settings. You can see here settings. And under discovery, click on add Meraki. Here, we have to provide the API key from the Meraki dashboard. And once we fetch organizations and click on discover, the subnet from the Meraki dashboard will also get added to the OpUtils console. Once added everything, your IPv4, IPv6, supernet, subnets, Meraki subnets as well, all of this will appear neatly organized in the tree view. So what is a tree view? As you can see here, the tree view gives you a hierarchical view that makes it easy to group IP addresses, DHCP servers, however you want. This simplifies the management process and keeps things streamlined. And beyond that, you also have donut view. Here, you can quickly filter and view IPs by network attributes like DNS-related IPs, Active Directory-related IPs, or NIC type, or rogue and OS type. Now, coming back to the tree view, let's take a look at the Summary tab. Let's click on Summary tab. The Summary tab gives us an overview of your overall IP address utilization. Essentially, all the IPs you've discovered in OpUtils, how they've been used. That is, you can see the summary total IPs that has been discovered, the reserved. You can also see graphical representation of IP availability and DNS status. Now let's move on to subnet details. Under subnet details, you can view the subnet address, size, usage. So under usage, you'll be able to see the utilization and will quickly able to understand how much availability is left within that subnet and how much has been used. You can also check the scan status and other metrics as well. You can scan all the subnet using the scan button provided here, or for a single subnet or more. Like let's say if you wanna scan only this particular subnet. Under actions, you have the option to scan this subnet alone. And you can also easily edit or delete the subnets, making subnet management simple, flexible, and always up to date. Now, let's dive into IP details. This view gives us a complete picture of each individual IP addresses that we are monitoring. So you can either view this data directly in the console or export it as CSV or PDF, as you can see here. For now, let's view this in the console. Now, let me quickly talk about the utilization status of the IPs. There are 3 of them: used, transient, and available. If an IP is used, you won't be able to allocate it to another device. If the status is a transient, it means the IP is in its cool-off period and can only be used once it's made available. And if an IP is available, it means you can allocate it to a device. Now, under IP details, the IP address, that its type, MAC address of the device, IP to DNS resolution, DNS to IP address resolution, and with more details can be seen. Now, clicking on an IP will take us to the IP snapshot page. Here, you can see OpUtils provides the IP address itself, the connected MAC address, the switch port or interface details, and the rest of the physical properties, and along with the last logged on user. Now, all this information is consolidated into a single view. Now, you might wonder, how can so much information appear in one place? Now, that's because OpUtils is tightly integrated across its modules. The IP address details comes from the IP address manager module. The interface and switchport details comes from switchport mapper, which we'll be covering in shortly. And the user details comes from OpUtils integration with Active Directory. So what you get here is a holistic view, not just of the IP itself. Now let's get into the IPs themselves and how do we actually manage them. In most networks, you will find a mix of dynamic IP allocations and static IP allocations. With dynamic allocations, the process is automated. You don't really need to track every detail manually. But with static allocations, you need to be careful. If you allocate an IP statically but don't mark it as such, there's a chance it could accidentally get reused for a dynamic allocation. And that's where IP conflict starts happening. So how do we prevent that? Well, one option is to jot down in a notepad and or an Excel sheet, and we know how unreliable that can get. Instead, with OpUtils, it's simple. Just select the IP you want and mark it as reserved. Now here you can see the option called Mark As. From this, you can choose to reserve an IP. You can select an IP and choose to reserve an IP. Reserved IPs are basically IPs you're planning to use elsewhere. You and your team can exclude these from dynamic allocation, making sure there is no overlap or conflict. And it's not just reserved IPs. You can also mark an IP as used, available, transient. Plus, OpUtils integrates with a rogue detection module. So you can tag IPs as trusted, rogue, or test according to the authenticity. Now, we'll be diving into this part later in the session. You can also filter the IPs using the filter tab. This makes it really easy to keep track of what's in use and what's available at any point. You can also import IP address details and add custom columns. Now, let's see history, IP history. Let me move on to and show you IP history. Under IP history, you also have the IP history tab, which lets you track historical usage of the IP, the detected time, MAC address, and the description of the IP. Now let's move on to IP alerts. You also have this where all the alerts that were raised for your IPs will be listed with their generated time. You can see the alerts generated time and other details here, along with the remarks. We will be covering about receiving real-time alerts later in the presentation. Let's head back to the IP. Another handy feature here in IPAM module is the IP request tool. This allows you to allocate groups of specific IPs from a particular subnet as per your request and requirements. Let's take a simple use case. Imagine I'm hosting an interview tomorrow for 5 or let's say 3 candidates for my team. Instead of manually tracking and allocating IPs, I can simply raise an IP request in OpUtils. Now, how to do that? Here, under settings, you can see new IP request. Let's go into that. And let's click on new IP request. Here, let's give a number of IPs, as I mentioned, 3, and the purpose as interview. And give the location. And we have to choose the preferred subnets. Now, from the subnets that we have, let's choose a particular subnet. And you'll be able to see all the available IPs, or you can also see all the IPs. We'll choose available IPs. Let's choose 3 IPs and click on next. Before submitting, I'll get a quick preview of my request, and once submitted, the request goes to the network administrator who can review it in the IP request console. The admin has the option to approve, modify, or deny the request based on the availability. So once approved, The IPs are allocated automatically and will show up under IP request. Now, let's move on and see dedicated dashboards for IPAM. As you can see here, dashboard, let's click on that, and IP address manager dedicated dashboard. It comes with different widgets that help you visualize your network data. Because networks generate a massive amount of data and it comes in real time. Dashboards like this helps to make sense of all of it, where you will be able to see and get an overview of all of the things that's happening. For example, here you can see top 10 subnets with occupied IPs, top 10 groups with occupied IPs. You can also see IP availability summary. This gives you a quick visibility into your resource utilization. Now, if you want to add a custom dashboard, you can click on this add new feature here. Click on that dashboard and you can give a dashboard name and add widgets according to your requirement. So essentially, the dashboard gives a clear picture of utilization availability all in one place. Now, this brings us to the end of this walkthrough of the IP address manager module. This session is going to be a brief overview of OpUtils. So if you'd like to explore the product and more, you can sign up for a free personalized demo. You can do that by answering the poll shared by a panelist in the chat. Now let's see a quick recap of what we've seen so far. Under IPAM module, we saw how OpUtils enables flexible IP discovery, the ability to manage and track IPs using both the tree view and the donut view, the advanced IP scanner for real-time insights into your IPAM data, the IP request tool for the planned deployments, IP history to track usage over time, alerts, the time each alert was generated, and we also looked at a dedicated dashboard. Let's see the next module in DDI, that is DHCP management. With OpUtils DHCP management, you get a centralized, effortless way to monitor all your DHCP servers and scopes. And with multi-vendor DHCP server discovery, you can view DHCP servers from different vendors in one place, which also gives us a real-time visibility into active leases, available IPs, scope utilization, and overall DHCP server. So you can spot issues before they impact your network. You can track scopes, leases, detect allocation problems like scope depletion or state leases, and also add policies. With DHCP management, everything is monitored from one unified console, helping you troubleshoot faster, improve performance, and reduce configuration error across your net environment. Now let's jump into the UI and see how it works. Before we proceed, I'd like to mention that the DHCP and DNS management features are currently in beta version, so feel free to explore them. Let's dive into the demos. For DDI management, first we have to add a DHCP server to unlock the management capabilities under unlock the capabilities. So for that, let's go into IP address manager and hover over add. Similarly, we did for IPv4 subnet, and click on add DHCP server. Here, let's give a server name. We can choose the server type. OpUtils support DHCP servers from multiple vendors such as Microsoft DHCP, Palo Alto Firewall, Linux Server, Cisco DHCP, and Fortinet Firewall. Once you've chosen your server type, you can choose a AD domain or add your AD domain. And once you click on add, a DHCP server will get added. Now, as we add a DHCP server, we'll also be able to see the DHCP management features unlocked. As you can see here, once you've added a DHCP server, a new tab called DHCP management will be opened here. Now, we just saw how to add a DHCP server. So under the tree view, let's click on DHCP servers. Now, with the enhanced DHCP management, we can manage the Microsoft DHCP servers as well. Now, let's see how. Click on Add and select. Let's click on Add and select Add DHCP server. Now, I'm going to show you what we have to do to manage the Microsoft DHCP servers. First, we have to enter a server name. Let's enter a server name and choose some server type as Microsoft DHCP. So once we choose Microsoft DHCP, let's also add a domain, AD domain. You can add a domain that you've created. And then we have to configure WinRM settings for DHCP management. So for communication from Microsoft DHCP to OpUtils, we need a communication protocol. That's where WinRM, that is Windows Remote Management Settings, comes into play. This is also in beta for that purpose. You can explore this option as well. Now, while you're configuring, we have to choose an authentication type from the given list and choose a WinRM connection mode, either on demand, always enable, manual, and give a protocol version, HTTPS or HTTP, and also avail the port number. And once you've done that, we have to test the connection to ping the DHCP server. Once it's been pinged, let's click on Add, and the DHCP server will get added into the OpUtils console. Here, you will see a DHCP summary. You can see the server name, the DNS name, number of scopes, total IPs. You can scan the server using the scan button. As you can see, just as we scan for IPAM module, you can scan that server using the scan button and run an entire scan using the scan button here. Let's go into a server and see it in more depth. Now here we get a summary of the DHCP server with the server name, IP, and other metrics, total IPs, and also a graphical representation of the IPs that's available, reserved, or leased. Now let's move on to scope details. So under scope details, you can see scope address, name, total IP, scope range, scope state, and all of that. Under scope address range, you'll be able to see the range from start IP to the end IP of the scope range and all the other metrics as well. Now, with DHCP management, we can also add a DHCP scope. Go to Add, and here, let's click on Add DHCP scope. Here, we can provide a DHCP scope name, give a description, and select the DHCP server for which we need to add the scope, and choose a subnet mask with the required number of hosts. Once you've done that, we can provide the start IP, to the end IP. Let's give the end IP as well. And once you've enabled that, let's enable the scope state toggle that's been provided here. So what happens when you enable this? This option will allow you to allocate IPs in real time, and as we create the scope, the IPs will be automatically allocated. Now, under advanced options, you can also configure DHCP options to apply policies while creating the scope. Now, what is this? For example, if you're creating a new scope for a branch office, okay, so you can define the address range, and address range as in the start and end IP will be given for the scope. And once you've done that, you can add options like name server, router, or DNS server as policies, and that will be enabled to the scope, and the devices in the particular scope, the devices in the branch will automatically receive these IPs with the correct settings applied instantly. That is, in short, when we are creating a scope, we can also add policies to that, which will be enabled, which will be added to the particular particular options that we are selecting from the DHCP options. Now, let me show this in real time. For example, under DHCP vendor class, I'm going to choose DHCP standard options and from options as DNS servers. Now let's say I'm giving a value here and click on add. You can see the policy that we are adding here, and then let's click on next. In the next window, you can choose to exclude certain IPs or IP range within the scope and also give the lease duration either as limited or unlimited for the scope along with the days, hours, minutes. Just click on next, and here you will get a summary of the scope that is getting created. Let's say we can review the summary and see what things have been added and click on save. And once you click on save, the scope will be added to the console. Now let's move on to IP address. Under the IP address tab, a full list of the IPs managed by the DHCP server can be seen. Here you can filter the IPs based on DHCP status, IP status, and also DHCP scope address. The DHCP scope address is nothing but instead of going back to the tree view and choosing a different subnet and then going to IP address, from here you can navigate to another subnet and see the IPs in there. OpUtils also offers MAC filtering, which is a crucial security feature. MAC filtering blocks devices at the DHCP layer and prevents IP allocations for blocked MAC addresses. We will discuss this in detail under rogue detection module. So we will be discussing this later on. Next, you can see DHCP policy. Let's dive into that. So you can view all your DHCP policies, including the policy name, status, assigned level. So what is assigned level? You can see some are global, some are scope level. When you assign it global level, the policy that we are adding will get added to all the scopes in the particular DHCP server that is global. Now, whereas if you want a policy to be particularly added only for a certain scope, you can choose scope level and you can see this scope address to that particular scope only, this policy will get added. Now, to add a new policy, how will you add a new policy? Under add, under DHCP management, click on add DHCP policy. We can give a policy name. We can give a policy name and we can select a DHCP server. Once we select a DHCP server, as I mentioned, we can assign it either in global level or scope level. I'm choosing global level. You can give the lease duration, either limited or unlimited. Enable the policy state toggle if you want the policy also to be assigned in real time to the particular scope or the global level, just similar to how we had enabled this for scope state. Now let's go on to advanced options. Here, you can define values so that policy will be applied only when certain criteria are met. Let's say we've chosen in a scope, we've already added a policy and you want this to be applied to a particular DNS server. That can also be initiated here. So for that, just similar to how we added it for scope option, we're going to use DHCP standard here and I'm going to choose the DNS servers and give the value here. And once I click on add, you can see the summary of that. You click on next. In the next step, you will be able to define policy conditions. Here, you can choose whether the policy should match all conditions or any of them. Then we can select the criteria that is from the given list below. If I choose fully qualified domain name, I can give a domain name. Let's see. And we can also choose to use a prefix wildcard or append wildcard or choose neither. And then once you click next, you will also get a summary tab. Once you click next, you will get a summary tab of, okay, we have to add this. Yeah, and then when we click next, we'll get a summary tab of the policy that we are adding. Once we click on save, the policy will get added to the OpUtils console. This is in short about DHCP management we saw. Let's see a recap of the DHCP management. We learned how to add DHCP server, a scope, and also policy effortlessly. We saw an overview about MAC filtering feature to block IP allocation from DHCP servers, which again we'll be discussing later on. And we saw DHCP policy addition, assigning it globally or scope level, and also advanced configurations for the same, and entire DHCP server and scope management. Now let's move on to the next module, that is DNS management. With OpUtils DNS management, you get a centralized and simple way to manage all your Microsoft DNS servers, zones, and records from one console. It gives you a clear visibility into your DNS environment, so you can track zones and records accuracy with ease. You can quickly add, edit, or delete forward and reverse lookup zones, create common record types like A, AA, PTR, and so on. With zone scavenging, you keep your data up to date and will help you spot stale or missing records before they affect name resolution. Now, all communication is securely handled through WinRM, it's just as similar to DHCP management, ensuring safe and reliable DNS operations. With real-time insights and streamline management, OpUtils helps you troubleshoot faster and maintain a healthy DNS setup with minimal efforts. Let's see DNS management in the UI. So let's click on DNS server from the tree view. And let's see how to add a DNS server. Under DNS management, click on Add DNS server. Let's give a server name and choose a domain, just as we did for DHCP management, and configure WinRM settings for DNS management. Here, this is also in beta version, exactly the way we had done for DHCP management. Once we've configured everything for in WinRM settings, let's test the connection, and it'll ping the DNS server. And once that's done, when we click on Add, the DNS server will get added in the console. So you can see the DNS server details as well. You can see the server type, number of zones, and so on. Let's go into a DNS server and see it in detail. Here you can see a summary of the DNS server. The summary consists of, let's say, server name, type, number of zones, the MAC address, and also you can see a graphical representation of the total zones in here. Now, let's see DNS zones. So we can go into this tab called DNS zones. And here you can see all the previously added zones for the particular DNS server. Now, let me show you how to add a DNS zone. Under Add, under DNS Management, click on Add DNS Zone. Here, let's select the DNS server that the zone has to be added to, and select a zone category, either forward lookup zone for IP to DNS resolution, or for vice versa as reverse lookup zone. Let's give a zone name and click on Next. And here we can choose the zone type either as primary zone, secondary zone, or stub zone. Primary zone is the main zone where DNS records are stored and updated. Secondary zone is a read-only backup copy of the primary zone, whereas stub zone is a small zone that only has the info needed to find the real DNS service. Once we choose this zone type, let's click on Next. And here we will get a summary of the DNS zone that we are creating. Let's click on Save, and the DNS zone will be created and added in the OpUtils console. Once a zone has been added, you can see the zones with the number of records. As you can see, lookup type, dynamic updated type, scan time, and so on. Now let me show you how to add advanced configurations for a new zone. So after we create a zone, we can configure it advancedly. So here, let's see in a zone, under actions, let's go into, you can see advanced actions. You can configure its zone replications and scavenging settings from here. We can either replicate the zone to store it to a zone file or an active directory. So the details of the zone will get replicated to either of the choice that we choose. And then we can choose a dynamic update type. And under zone aging and scavenging, first let me disable this. So once we enable scavenging of stale resource records, what happens is it is nothing but enabling a duration of time for stale resource records. So this will not add a bulk to our zones that we're creating. So you can have a no refresh interval, a refresh, and also give a refresh interval for the zone aging. So once this is done, scavenging will take place. Now let's click on next. Here, we can give the name servers and the SOA for the zones that we're creating. Under name servers, we have to give the fully qualified domain name. The ones that you have created will be listed here, or you can also add a new one. After that, you can give the start of authority with the serial number, the primary server, the responsible contact, and also the refresh interval, retry interval, expiry date. Also, you have to give a minimum time to live for the particular zone that we are creating. Once that's done, you can enable zone transfer to transfer the zone details to either authoritative name servers or any servers for that matter, also secure servers. So if you want to transfer the zone entirely to an authoritative name server, you can enable it here. Similarly, you can enable automatic notifications for the same and notify the servers. You can notify authoritative name server and secure servers. Once you've configured all of this and click Save, this advanced configuration will be added to the zone that we had created. To create a record under a zone, under Actions, let's click on Create Record. Here we have to choose a we have to choose a record type and give a fully qualified domain name for target host. Now here you can enable record aging. So what this option will do is it will apply scavenging settings as discussed for zone, and that will remove automatically the stale records. So once you apply this, the scavenging will be applied to the DNS records as well. And once we click on save, the DNS records will be saved under the DNS records tab. Let's move on to that. Here you can see the record details with the zone, record type, time to live, zone name, and last dynamic updated time. With this, you can successfully see all the DNS servers that you created with its zones and records. Let's get back to the presentation and see a quick recap of DNS management. We discussed how to add DNS servers, zones, and records. We also saw the advanced zone configuration for zone replication, zone transfer, and scavenging. We also saw record addition, especially with enabling record aging. Now, let's move on to the next module, that is switchport mapper module. IP management and switchport management really goes hand in hand when it comes to managing your network address space. But can you imagine manually tracing network cables just to track and manage switch ports? That might work in a very small setup, but in a large network with multiple devices connected to multiple switches, it becomes almost impossible. This is where switchport mapper in OpUtils makes life easier with it. You don't need to trace cables at all. It will automatically provide end-to-end mapping and scanning of switch ports. On top of that, it comes with a port view feature that lets you visualize your switch ports, and it also shows you critical matrices that needs to be monitored. Additionally, switches can be discovered and managed directly through the Cisco ACI in OpUtils. This will enable seamless integration with your Cisco managed infrastructure. And here's the best part. OpUtils actively monitor your switches for issues like port flapping and looping, and it proactively alerts you via email or syslog if something goes wrong. So you're not just monitoring, you're preventing potential outages. All right, so now let's jump into the demo and see how this works. The switchport mapper UI is very similar to the IPAM UI. Let's move into switchport mapper next to the IP address manager. To discover switches in OpUtils, let's hover over add and add a switch. You have 4 options. You can either add it manually, import from CSV, discover in bulk, and also add from Cisco ACI Discovery. Now let's see how to add it manually. For that, we have to select a group name, a subnet group name as we selected for IPAM, and then give a switch name. And choose the credentials. Once we add credentials, we can give the functions that has to be performed during the discovery. And once we click on add, the switch will get added in the console. We can also similarly, we can also import from CSV, giving a CSV file, and also discover a set of IPs for the switches giving the start IP and end IP along with the credentials, and we will be able to discover bulk switches. After that, we can also discover using Cisco ACI. For that, let's go to settings, and under settings, under discovery, let's click on Cisco ACI. Here, let's see how to add Cisco ACI. We have to give the device name of the Cisco ACI and give the credentials that's required and click on add device. The Cisco ACI will get along with the IP address and everything will get added under the switchport mapper module. Now, your switches are inside OpUtils and ready for mapping. So here we can see, just like with IPAM, you have a tree view and a donut view. You can see tree view and a donut view. You also get a summary tab that gives you a quick insight into all your switch ports. The summary tab gives an at-a-glance overview of switch counts, total ports, the port availability, switch by vendor, and so on. Let's move on to the switches tab. This lists every switch with details like IP address, DNS name, utilization percentage, the scan status, and other matrices. You can scan the switch using the scan button, all of the switches, or you can select a particular switch and scan them as well. You can also modify or delete the switch using these buttons. You can export the details as PDF or CSV file as well. So here in one place, you can discover, map, and monitor all your switch ports without touching a single cable. Now let's move on to the ports tab. Here you can see all the ports in your network. Notice that some of these ports are color-coded. Now what does that mean? You can see some of these are color-coded. Yellow ports are the ports that are connected to multiple MACs. Gray are the stacked ports, and you will also have orange ports as well. Those are the ports that's connected to a device with virtual IPs. So you might have ports connected to virtual IP devices, trunked ports, or even multiple MAC addresses. So how do you view connected device details? Now that's easy. Just click on a port and you will get a port snapshot with all the details. And we can also see, let's click on the connected MAC. You can see all the MACs that are connected with IP address and the rest of the details. Another key feature here is Port View tab, which lets you visually map ports to the MAC addresses. Just by hovering over a port, we get the details such as port, the interface name, status, and the rest of the addresses. Now, why does this matter? As a network admin, having complete visibility into device mapping is essential. This helps in detecting and troubleshooting issues like port flapping, looping, or even faulty cables. Also can import port details, add custom columns, and provide actions and filters as well. Let's see port history. So just like how in IPAM, we also will be able to see a port history of all the switches. And also we have a dedicated alerts tab with the generated time with all the switches as well here. Now, Switchport Mapper has a dedicated dashboard. Under dashboard, click on Switchport Mapper. You'll be able to see different widgets with, let's say, top 10 switches with occupied port and availability and so on. Just like how we added for IPAM module, we can add custom dashboard using the add new feature here as well. So that's a quick but comprehensive look into the Switchport Mapper module and how it helps you gain control over your switch connectivity. Now, moving back to the presentation, let's take a quick recap of what we've seen in Switchport Mapper module. We saw how to get started with switch discovery, how to view connectivity insights and utilization metrics, how to visualize ports and connected devices, how to track port history, and a dedicated dashboard for Switchport Mapper module. Together, these capabilities makes troubleshooting much easier and gives you complete control over your network switch ports. Now let's move on to the rogue device detection module of OpUtils. This one is especially important because it's designed to enhance the security of your enterprise network by protecting it against potential threats from unauthorized or malicious devices. But now let's think about this from a network admin's perspective. Manually tracking and monitoring every single device that enters your network is almost impossible, right? So, especially in enterprises with the policy to bring your own devices, and these things will get really hard to deal with. In those cases, what you really need is real-time monitoring that can quickly identify and stop a device before it becomes a problem. That's exactly where OpUtils rogue detection module helps. One of the best or the biggest advantage is its Active Directory integration. With AD integrations, OpUtils automatically identifies all the trusted devices and that are already part of the AD environment. This means OpUtils will automatically classify the devices in AD as trusted. On top of that, you can even assign authenticity tags to the devices inside OpUtils. It doesn't stop there. Some attackers use advanced techniques like ARP spoofing to sneak into a network. OpUtils has you covered on that front as well. It continuously scans ARP entries in your network, which means it can quickly detect spoofing attempts and help prevent them before they cause any damage, ensuring that overall integrity and security of your network. Now let's jump into the product now and see how the capabilities work in the OpUtils console. As you can see here, we have a dedicated tab for the rogue detection module. Now remember how in IP address manager or switchport mapper, we had to initiate some sort of a discovery addition to fetch the IPs or switches for monitoring. But in rogue detection module, it works a little differently. Here you already see a list of devices automatically generated. So how does this list actually gets created? Through real-time network scanning and Active Directory integration. Once you've set up your OpUtils deployment and added your IPs, switches, DNS servers, DHCP servers, routers, and Active Directory, OpUtils starts monitoring your entire network. It keeps an eye on every device it tries to connect, what IP it's using, which switch port it's on, and so on. Now, OpUtils periodically scans your routers, switches, and gateway servers to build a complete inventory of the devices on the network. Whether they're safe or suspicious, all of these devices will be discovered under the Discover tab. Now, under this view, you can see MAC address, IP address, DNS name, and discovered time. Now, from this view, when we select and classify devices into three categories, you can see trusted, rogue, and guest. Now, when we choose, let's say, what happens when a device is marked as trusted? Well, that simply means you're allowing the device to access your network and its resources freely. These are usually the devices that we've added by ourselves, like new servers, routers, or access points. And of course, devices that are already part of your Active Directory will also be auto-marked as trusted. So once you click select devices, under the three dots, you can mark them as trusted. You can also inspect individual devices by clicking on its MAC address. If you click on a MAC address, you'll be able to see the device MAC address details. You can also import MAC address details from a CSV file. So here, once you import those, they will automatically get listed under trusted. The second category is guest devices. This comes in handy when you want to allow temporary access. For example, let's say your organization is hosting a conference and attendees are bringing their own laptops and phones. You can mark these as guest devices and grant them access for a fixed time period, say just for a duration of the event. Okay, so let's choose devices and mark them as guest. Once you mark them as guest, the guest will it'll get added under the guest tab. Now, here is the important bit. Once the validity period expires, if those devices are still communicating with your network, OpUtils alerts you immediately and say you understood that it's been updated, so you want to extend the validity of the devices. You can select the devices under guest, and from the three dots, you can extend the validity period and give the date till which date it should be valid under this. Finally, we have a third category that is rogue devices. If you come across a suspicious device that you don't want on your network, simply mark it as rogue. You can mark the device as rogue. This ensures that the device can no longer communicate with your network. From here, you can also select the device. Let's move into and see the rogue devices. You can select the you can select the MAC address and remotely block the device right from within your OpUtils console. So once it's been marked as rogue, and if you still find it communicating, you can mark it as you can either block the switch or block the device from the network. This remote blocking capability means you don't have to run around pulling cables or tracing wires. OpUtils lets you isolate that device in seconds. Now, this is especially useful if an unauthorized activity is detected. These blocked devices, MAC addresses, let's say if this is in the DHCP layer, these blocked devices will get listed under MAC filtering that we saw in DHCP management. Now, MAC address filtering helps network administrators secure DHCP environment by controlling which devices can receive IP addresses. As you know, every device has a unique MAC address. So with this feature, admins can approve trusted devices while blocking unauthorized or rogue ones before they ever connect. Now, under IPAM, if we go into the summary, and if we go into DHCP server, click on summary, MAC filtering, you will either be able to scan and see the current status of the MAC addresses that have been blocked. And if you still want to continue to remove them, you can remove the MAC from the filter list. We also have a dedicated dashboard for rogue detection. Under dashboard rogue detection, we can see the dedicated dashboard. Let's quickly recap what we've seen in this module. We saw how OpUtils automatically discovers devices in your network, how to manually import devices into the module, how to classify devices as trusted, guest, or rogue, how to view connectivity details, and remotely block or unblock switch ports and devices. Now let's move on to the next module, networking tools. OpUtils also provides a rich set of networking tools to simplify your day-to-day network operations. These tools gives administrators deep visibility into their network beyond IP address management and switchboard mapping. You can see the tools such as bandwidth monitor, config file manager, network monitor, and wake on LAN. Now let's see this directly from the console. It's under networking tools. First, let's see bandwidth monitor. This tool allows you to monitor your network's bandwidth usage in real time. By adding an interface, you can discover interfaces. You can track details such as device status, interface speed, traffic volume, and last port volume value. And if we go into one particular device, you can see a historical view of the traffic that's been used based on current daily, month, yearly, and alarms. Now let's move on to the config file manager. Currently, OpUtils config file manager supports Cisco devices. You can add a Cisco device. Using this tool, you can view the configuration files across the Cisco devices. It's especially handy for admins. You can see the history of it. Who need to ensure the device configuration are consistent and recoverable. Next, we have network monitor. This tool helps you keep an eye on critical network devices by polling the device for their availability and response in real time. You can add a device. Here, once you've added a device to be monitored, when we click on a particular device, you'll get a device snapshot with all its key matrices, with the IP address, whether it's healthy, the alarms that have been raised. Any alerts related to the device will be shown under the alarms tab here. So you get both monitoring and troubleshooting from single screens. Now let's move on to wake on LAN, the last one in the set. This is especially useful when IT admins need to perform wake-up routines on group of devices for scheduled tasks. You can also wake up devices on demand by clicking the power button here. Let's say you select a couple of devices, and by clicking either individually or clicking the power button here, you'll be able to wake the devices up. Now, this is a neat way to save energy and still have devices ready when needed. So that's a quick walkthrough of the networking tools available in OpUtils. Moving back to the presentation. Let's talk about OpUtils network toolset as a whole. The toolset gives IT admins a centralized console to perform a variety of everyday network tasks. There are 6 different groups of tools: ping tools to detect connectivity issues, address monitoring tools to resolve MAC addresses, run DHCP, DNS lookups and DHCP scope, network monitoring tools to run network scans, SNMP tools like MIP browser, Cisco tools specially designed for managing and monitoring Cisco devices, and finally a general networking tool set to run queries, view syslogs, and monitor traps. With this, we get a broad set of utilities, and OpUtils ensures that admins don't need to rely on multiple scattered tools. They can manage everything from one place. Let's take a look at these tools directly from the console. Here under Toolset, you can see all the ping tools, address monitoring tools, networking monitoring tools, SNMP tools, Cisco tools, and the other tools to query and for monitoring traps. Now, let's move back to the presentation. And let's see schedules, reports, and alarms. Scheduler. What is a scheduler and why do you need it? The simple reason is to automate network scanning and keep your IP and MAC address always up to date. Instead of running an on-demand scan every time, you can set up custom scans at preferred intervals. Let's see this directly from the UI. Let's go into the UI. Under Settings, under IP Address Manager, you can choose Scheduler. Now, you can add a task, either IPv4 or IPv6 task. You can give a task name and choose by subnet group and available subnets. And once you give the scan time according to hour, daily, weekly, monitor, monthly. When you give these, what happens is you click on save and the IPs will be scanned by the custom time that you have provided. Now, OpUtils will automatically trigger these scans for the IP ranges that we have created. Next, let's see reports. Reports are indispensable part of a network management workflow because they provide clear documentation of changes and insight into your network activity. Let's move on to the console and see the reports that we have in OpUtils. We have dedicated reports for IP address manager, switchport mapper, and we can also schedule reports to get in particular intervals of time. And we can also have audit reports to see what and who has been, logging in and using it as well. Now let's move back to the presentation and see alerts and notifications. Alerts are a vital part of network monitoring because they allow you to proactively monitor your network and fix issues before they escalate. With OpUtils, you can configure alerts for events such as IP conflict, ERP spoofing, and guest device validity expiry. When an alert is triggered, you'll get instant notifications via syslog, email, and directly inside the console. Let's see the alerts inside the console. Under settings, now let's see the alerts to configure in IP address manager. Click under IP address manager, go to config alerts. Here, you can decide, do you want to be alerted when an IP state changes from available to used or forward lookup fail, etc. You can also change the threshold value. This is customizable. And then there's one most important one, IP conflict alerts. So you can see IP address conflict is detected. Here, if an IP address is, if you want to know if an IP address is conflicting, you can enable it to get either via email or syslog, and you will be alerted. All these alerts are logged in your console, so you can review them and resolve the issues proactively. Let's move on to see user management. So what is user management and why do you need it? The simple reason is to maintain network integrity while enabling collaboration. OpUtils uses role-based access control for user management. With this, you can create customized roles for different users or teams, use predefined roles like administrator with full read and write access and operator with read-only access. This ensures that the operators only see and access what they're supposed to, while admins have the full control. Under settings, under general settings, you can see user management. So here we have to first add a role. As we mentioned, we can give a role for administrator or operator. And once you can also enable the actions that this role can enable. And then once a role is added, you can assign this role to a user. For the user, you can either add a user, you can first create a user here and enable and give password authentication and the actions that the user can perform. Let's move back to the presentation. Now, let's see why do we need OpUtils. With so many IPAM and switchport mapper tools available in the market, why should you choose OpUtils? Here's why. OpUtils is both powerful and extremely easy to use. Getting started is simple. Just download the product, associate your resources with the console, and you will be up and running in minutes. And unlike many other tools, there's no steep learning curve. OpUtils gives you a centralized dashboard and widgets for availability, visibility into all the crucial data you're monitoring. Best of all, you can customize the dashboard to match specific needs. Another major advantage is automation. Instead of wasting time on repeated on-demand scans, OpUtils automates network scanning. OpUtils also comes with 30+ built-in network tools, so you don't have to juggle between multiple utilities and manage and monitor your network. Everything is in one place. For deeper visibility, you also have in-depth utilization reports and instant alerts. All these modules are integrated with each other, giving us a holistic view of your network address space. On the security side, OpUtils helps you detect rogue devices and protect your network integrity with role-based user management controls. We also have DHCP and DNS management in beta version as part of the unified DDI enhancement. So feel free to explore that feature capabilities as well. And finally, OpUtils also has a mobile version. You can integrate your iOS or Android devices with on-premise deployment and monitor your IP address space anytime, anywhere. So in short, OpUtils makes network management simpler, faster, and more secure, all in one unified solution. That's about it. Now, this is a very brief demo on OpUtils capabilities with general circumstances. However, if you'd like a personalized demo or would like to clear your doubts or queries on OpUtils, please reach out to us and our product experts will clarify your doubts and help you set up OpUtils for your enterprise network. Now, before we move ahead with FAQs, kindly take a moment and participate in the poll. If you want to know more about OpUtils, take a look at our homepage, which is oputils.com. You can also take a look at our blogs, tech videos, knowledge base, and pit stop. You can follow us on our social media handles like LinkedIn. We have Managed Engine ITOM LinkedIn, and leave a Captura review if you like our product. The link to it is posted in the chat panel. Thank you for joining us in the free training.